What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and I have yet another album review for you. Running solo once again. Might end up running solo most of this weekend just because of scheduling conflicts. Might have one of the other guys on another video. Not really sure. But there was definitely some more stuff I wanted to go over this week. Granted, July has been, as I said, kind of slow and also kind of tragic. There's been some pretty solid releases, and this one was on my list for damn sure. So we are going to go over the debut full-length from Kontusion, with a K, Insatiable Lust for Death. This also comes out on the 25th of July on Profound Lore Records. This band formed sometime before 2022. Didn't really say on the archives, but they did originate in New Jersey and Washington, D.C. This, again, is their debut album. I got into them with their 2022 demo/EP. Take your pick. It was absolutely disgusting sounding. We saw them at Heavy Hell in 2023 as well. Put on an amazing show. And for those that don't know, this is some absolutely grimy, filthy death metal. This is a two-man act featuring one Chris Moore and one Mark Bronzina. These guys have been associated with a lot of killer bands, namely deathgrind, obviously wanted to pay a little bit of tribute there. But also Iron Reagan, Coffin Dust, Mammoth Grinder, and even Repulsion. So these guys have like a pretty solid pedigree, and I mean, they're all in bands that I really like. And I love their demo, so yeah, naturally I was pretty excited for this one. And man, this is some absolutely nasty death metal. Like, for those people who like their death metal particularly raw and just visceral and primal, I don't think this could be more raw. Like, this is for the death metal fans that like their death metal so raw that, like, bacteria could grow on the sound itself. It's cavernous, it's punishing as hell, it is throttling you on every single song, it has elements of punk and grind. Like, honestly, this almost kind of sounds like a punk band, just kind of learned how to play death metal. The songs are short, they're vicious, and it really wasn't exactly what I was prepared for, at least in comparison to the demo. The demo had longer songs. They were a little bit more groove-laden and drawn out. The production was definitely raw, but raw in a different sense. Like, a lot of reverb. Reverb kind of across the board, but I feel like the reverb on the demo was focused a lot on the vocals, which were just echoey as fuck, like almost bordering on too much. Here, they've kind of drawn back that on the vocals, but man, this album just has this thick layer of murk hanging over it. And I feel like a lot of the reverb got pushed to the drums this time, because the drums sound like they were recorded in a fucking giant warehouse. They're echoey, they are pummeling, and this is a lot faster and a lot more just explosive, I would say, than the demo. The first three tracks in here are just punishing as hell. Endless Horror, Countless Atrocities, and Revenge. And that sounds like a story arc. But you get a good mix of blast beats, D beats, you got some like more crusty, kind of like punky riffs mixed in with like heavy tremolos and big fucking lumbering chugs. This honestly sounds like a mix of like a band like Necrotic and like Black Curse. And there's a lot of carryover, at least in my mind, from, like, I would say deathgrind. It definitely has a lot of grindy accents throughout here. There's some short, vicious songs that just kind of go for the throat in terms of, like, a more, like, punky sound overall, like Melting in particular. I think that's the shortest song on the album, and it's pretty much just all straight up, like, punk riffs and such. You get some cool breakdowns here and there, or at least spots where they kind of like break down the riff a bit. But you also get that kind of like sludgy, thick, again, kind of crusty sound that you would associate with Mammoth Grinder too. And if you kind of go way back, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here that kind of sounds like Autopsy. But again, like, done in a sense to make it sound, I mean, possibly more rotten, more staticky. It's a wall of just like dense, heavy riffs, and even when they isolate the bass, like the bass, when they isolated it, it kind of sounded like a fucking muscle car revving up in a fucking tunnel. You do get some good pockets of like sludgy, nasty grooves, especially at the end of Revenge. They just kind of slow that song down to a crawl, and it just sounds like, I don't know, like the most swampy Morbid Angel riff that Morbid Angel didn't write. And with all the like double time, like stomping moments on here and how swampy and just gross the sounds, this has a lot of like callbacks, like early Bolt Thrower, and I'm talking like before War Master, so like Just Realm of Chaos and In Battle There Is No Law. That is the vibe. I got that especially on Throne of Skulls, one of my particular favorites on here. The tribal lead in on there I think is awesome. It sets up the song well. It's a little bit more brooding at first. Then it explodes into blast. But you get these slow, monotonous riffs over the blast beat before it breaks into the tremolos and such. When the tone gets a chance to ring out, it is just swampy and fucking filthy. And a lot of this, when it's going full bore, like heavy tremolos and blasts and the cavernous vocals, it's almost like an impenetrable wall of just dense, murky filth. But there's just enough in terms of like holes in the wall for a little bit of like atmosphere to creep out, or at least like some cool, clever lead melodies. Because you do get some like double guitars and some harmonized tremolos every now and then. There's some really catchy harmonized riffs, especially on Subjugation and Revenge. And again, it's kind of like, you know, they have to like claw their way out of the murk in terms of like the just massive fucking disgusting sound on this album just to kind of get that melody across. Outside of that, you get a lot of like short, violent leads, tons of dive bombs, they're squealy, occasionally a little bit more melodic, but for the most part, they're just fucking feral sounding. And as I said, a lot of the songs are very short, they're very much to the point, which, I mean, the point is to just beat you over the head relentlessly. In terms of like setup or atmosphere or anything to kind of like, you know, let off the gas, this is really not much. Like a little bit of feedback and then you're off to the fucking races. There are some points where they isolate some riffs to make the transition stand out a little bit more, but for the most part, this thing is just, you know, a barrage of fucking heavy. Now, as I said, this is very primal, very raw. And even in terms of like the songwriting, it's kind of boiled down to its bare essentials, but they still do a lot in the way of like dynamics to kind of break up the songs just enough to make them stand out a little bit more. I will admit some of these songs do kind of run together because, I mean, I feel like all of them kind of have the same modus operandi, which is just to, I don't know, make people fucking go ape shit in a pit. But a lot of the variety comes in like, you know, fun riff changes. And sometimes it's the same riff, like they're playing the same chords, which again, this has a big kind of like punk vibe to it. But they'll play it in different ways. Like you get like the single fucking like down picked, very crusty ones. Occasionally you get like a little like lead melody on top of that. But then they'll take that same riff, do it as a tremolo, and then, you know, maybe break it down and kind of like chug it up a bit. To a degree, you could argue maybe that's a little bit safe, but that is kind of the thing with like more primal death metal. And a lot of this is about momentum. You got to keep the fucking foot on the gas in here. And at no point will I say that this kind of just like lags at any point. It shouldn't. It's only like 26 minutes long. This is only about like 9 minutes longer than their EP. The longest track on here, Subjugation, is only like 3 minutes and 44 seconds, I believe. But to their credit, they pack a lot of like fun dynamics in there. And there's some like, you know, different riff changes on there that kind of open up the song. And I'll say there are some like really catchy melodic moments. Like this is big air quotes on the melodic. Like a lot of this, to anyone that really doesn't listen to like particularly raw, ugly death metal, it's probably gonna think someone did like, you know, field recordings of like alligators and fucking sewers making noises and then just put like riffs and blasts on top of it. This was just a fucking hellishly intense listen, pretty much a no breaks run, except for, you know, I don't pay for Spotify, so I had to hear at least 2 commercials, but that's not the band's fault, that's just because I'm cheap. I love how visceral and disgusting and raw and biting and snarling this is, but I will say some of the songs do kind of run together, and sometimes the production can be a bit much, especially considering how fast this album moves. This is mostly blasts and D beats on here, and when it's blasting with all the reverb on the drums and such, and then how just, you know, huge and thick this fucking sounds, it can kind of sound like a wall of mud at certain points. At the same time, you could argue that is the atmospheric aspect of this too, and it does work in terms of making the sound even more primal and kind of fucking evil at points too. Like there's some definite incantation vibes on here as well. But there were points where I was kind of like left like kind of searching for the riff and occasionally searching for the beat, because you get that, you know, echo on the snare, and sometimes it can be kind of hard to follow. Plus the consistent din of the hissing cymbals on here. The production and the pace and the relentless nature of this album can be a little bit much at times. And it wasn't that case on the demo. I like the drum production on that one a lot more, like, because it's a little bit more crisp. You can hear them a little bit better, but it still sounds raw. It still sounds almost like what you would get live. That, and I did miss some of the groovier pockets that were on the demo, like when they got down into like some just filthy, rotten, groovier parts. It just had a totally different characteristic to it. Like the autopsy comparisons were definitely there on those moments. They just don't show up as much on here. But I really dug this. Like, this was just an absolutely feral, disgusting listen. It kind of reminded me of the last Black Curse in terms of, like, the pacing and how just vicious it was. Like, feral. Like, not even human sounding at points. So overall, I'm going to give this 4 stars. I was hovering at 3.5, but honestly, like, the overall experience on here, I mean, it's just a vicious fucking listen. It's like death metal at its most primal. But there's also a lot of like punk and fucking crust on it. You know, touches of grindcore. These guys almost kind of blended like all the bands that they were a part of. Like the only thing that was missing was like a flat out like thrash section, but I don't know if that really would have worked with this. I will say at points the production was a little bit much just in terms of like how much reverb and how like dense and fucking, you know, impenetrable it was. But it works with this band's style being so raw and primal, so I can't necessarily fault them there. It just has this gritty kind of like punky appeal. And I totally forgot about the last track, which is a flat out punk cover of the Shit Lickers, which I'd never heard of that band before. I had to double check and just make sure like I didn't write it down wrong. It's like it was Shit Kickers. So it's totally Shit Kickers. And then I looked at it like, no, it's Shit Lickers. Fucking lovely. But yeah, it's a fun punk cover done with a fucking like death metal intensity. And yeah, that pretty much kind of sums up the album too. So yeah, if you're a big fan of, I would say again, like Necrot, Incantation, Black Curse too, like this kind of has that same just over the top, super feral kind of vibe to it. But, you know, just way more death metal. But yeah, a little bit of like Magruder Grind, Mammoth Grinder, and honestly, Repulsion. It kind of has that same full tilt boogie kind of sound that Horrified does. But yeah, if any of that sounds good, definitely check this out. So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We also have memberships. They are only 99 cents, and again, our lone perk is doing a members-only live stream, which we 100% owe you, but again, we gotta get schedules kind of like lightened up a bit so we can actually do one. But memberships are the main way to support the channel, and if you would like to become a member, there is a join button down there for you to smash with all of your might, or some of it. As long as the button goes off, you did it right. And of course, thank you guys so much for liking, subscribing, commenting, all that stuff. It means the world to us. It's amazing seeing this channel grow. Tons of content in the future. Again, we're gonna find a date to finally do At the Gates, because I'm eager to move on past that. I've had my ranking set for fucking ever now, and I really can't wait to like fully expose Jammin' John to some Immortal, because I don't know, I have a hunch he's gonna like that shit. But yeah, tons of the usual stuff, and again, I think in August the releases start picking up, so we're gonna have some bigger albums to talk about for sure. So yeah, one more big thank you, because you guys are awesome, and we will catch you later.